Welcome to Secret Agenda YouTube channel. We have entered the 10th month of the Ukraine-Russian war, which the whole world is following breathlessly. In this process, Russia suffered the heaviest losses in its history. The Moscow administration went back almost 10 years in the military, socio-economic, and political fields. The global effects of the war, on the other hand, spread to all countries of the world, especially Eastern Europe. Countries bordering Ukraine gave much more importance to security measures. Particularly, NATO member Poland, located on the border with Ukraine, had to increase its military expenditures considerably. The event that caused this was a missile that fell on the village of Przeworów. The missile, which fell on the Polish border during the war, when the tension was at its peak, put the security and army members of the Warsaw government on red alert. The Ukrainian army, on the other hand, maintained its position of resistance, that is, defense, for a long time, within a period of 10 months. Thanks to military and financial support from Europe and the US government, the Kiev army was able to make an incredible comeback, cutting off all routes of the Russian troops into Ukraine. For this purpose, Ukraine, which succeeded in liberating Kherson again, continued its advance and turned its route to Crimea. Prior to the Kherson victory, the Kiev army, which had already targeted the Russian Black Sea Fleet in Crimea, carried out the first drone army attack in history in this region. The place was off the coast of Sevastopol, the largest city in Crimea. Ukraine has set up its drone army and was just waiting for the right time to attack. And the expected moment came. The drone army of the Ukrainian armed forces launched an attack on the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Kiev's submarine, unmanned vehicles, and UAVs played a leading role in this great operation. Caught unprepared, the Russian Navy was only concerned about getting out of this attack with the least damage. Storms began to break in Sevastopol. Every time the Ukrainian drones fell on the Russian ships, the seawater almost exceeded the length of the ships, forming a lake on the decks. This gigantic operation, organized by the Ukrainian armed forces, came to an end after a long time. Smoke and soot covered the shores of Sevastopol, where the Russians once held the parade of naval power. The toll of the attack was quite heavy. Ukrainian drones damaged many Navy ships, including the Russian flagship Makarov. After this operation, the Ukrainian army continued its rearguard attacks. The Ukrainian armed forces dealt the first major blow to the glorious Russian Black Sea Navy fleet by sinking the flagship Moskva. Later, Bayraktar TB2 and Ukrainian Neptune missiles became the nightmare of Russian warships, and the Russian Navy lost 16 warships or boats in 8 months. In the 9th month of the war, the Ukrainian army, for the first time in history, attacked the Russian Black Sea Fleet naval base with a large army of submarine and air drones, damaging 3 more warships of the Russian Navy. In this case, we can easily say that the Ukrainian Navy neutralized 19 warships of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Now, the mighty Russian Black Sea Navy seems to have shrunk to the size of a river navy. Recently, reports of casualties of Russia's Navy in the Black Sea as a result of these attacks were announced. By now, 90% of the Russian Black Sea Fleet has been destroyed. You heard right, the Russians now have about 7 warships left in the Black Sea Navy. And it was even claimed that there were a few ships still damaged in these 7 ships that continued their naval mission. Difficult times for Russia had already begun. Having lost almost all of its naval power, the Moscow army could no longer threaten the Ukrainians from the sea. As the war circle narrowed for the Russians, the Ukrainian army knew very well how to use this advantage. Ukraine, which is a state that does not have enough warships, managed to defeat Russia, which has a powerful naval fleet. The happiness of the Ukrainian leader, who made statements on this issue, did not go unnoticed. Vladimir Zelensky said, "The smaller the Russian Black Sea Fleet, the safer it is in the Black Sea." The Ukrainian president did not give much details about the operations to be carried out in Crimea and its surroundings, but Zelensky underlined that this war would not end until he recaptured the Crimea. The very impressive rhetoric of the Ukrainian leader, who did not forget to emphasize Crimea in almost every statement, gave a lot of confidence to the Ukrainians, but also instilled fear in the Russians. Zelensky said, "The war started in Crimea and it will end here." Yes, the message was already delivered to the other party. Russia, on the other hand, preferred to remain optimistic about these attacks carried out by the Ukrainian forces in and around Sevastopol. But the consequences of these attacks were too important to ignore. Despite the Kremlin's statement on minimal losses, most likely the attack resulted in heavy damage to the Makarov frigate, the flagship of the Russian Federation Black Sea Fleet, and several other ships. The defeat period of the Russian Federation for the Black Sea Front actually started with the first weeks of the occupation of Ukraine. Early in the war, the only Russian naval victories included the capture of Zmyny Island on February 24th. However, this island was recaptured by the Ukrainian forces at the end of June. It was also reported that in the spring and summer of 2022, the Russian ships Novocherkassk, Caesar Kunikov, Vasily Bek, and Vsevolod Bobrov were damaged in the Black Sea. This development of events led to the change of the commander of the Black Sea Fleet in the middle of the year. The commander of the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation, Viktor Sokolov, replaced Ihor Osipov in this position in August. Following this change, as of November 9th, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported that 16 Russian boats and ships were destroyed in its current reports. But that statistic didn't include the latest Russian nightmare of Sevastopol. These damaged Russian ships had to be added to the flagship frigate Makarov and 3 more Russian mine layers. However, after the Sevastopol attack, the number of missiles launched to the Russian naval fleet area in and around Crimea's Sevastopol decreased. Volodymyr Zelensky, on the other hand, made a statement on the 6th of November that not a single caliber ship went on a combat mission in the Black Sea. Ukraine had successfully achieved its goal. The intensity of the attacks on the Russian Black Sea Fleet area had decreased, but it was clear that a great intimidation was given to the Moscow administration. Former Deputy Chief of Staff of the Ukrainian Navy, Andriy Ryzhenko, stated that the decrease in missile launches in recent days was due to the difficult weather conditions in the Black Sea. Also, Ryzhenko noted that 2 combat-capable Project 06363 submarines have recently arrived in Sevastopol from their base Novorossiysk. Ryzhenko said there are 6 submarines of this type in total in the Black Sea Fleet. Such submarines can also launch cruise missiles. Theoretically, these submarine types have the same capability as a dozen ships of the Russian Federation Black Sea Fleet. But there are few ships equivalent to these submarines in the Russian Navy. The Russian ships that can now fire caliber are more in the foreground. But 3 surface ships of the Russian Navy are actually ready for battle for this. We are talking about the Admiral Essen frigate and 2 Boyan M-type corvettes. The frigate is a 125-meter ship with 8 cruise missile launchers, anti-aircraft missile complex, torpedo compartment, and artillery equipment. In addition, the ship can carry a military helicopter. Admiral Essen of the Black Sea Fleet is a fairly young vessel in the composition of its fleet and was launched in November 2014. The ships of the Boyan M project, for example, the Cherry Volochyok and Orakovo Zyevo missile corvettes, have a length of about 74 meters. In addition, these ships are equipped with 8 calibers, gun emplacements, machine guns, and anti-aircraft missiles. Other ships are not in a position to attack. Admiral Makarov has been damaged, although not fatally, and needs repair. Another frigate, Admiral Grigorievich, is currently in the Mediterranean. Other Boyan M-type corvettes are also not ready for battle. There are also 4 patrol ships in the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation. For example, the 90-meter Vasily Baikov patrol ship, with artillery, missile weapons, and a helipad, is the most well-known. According to Captain Ryzhenko, these are the only surface ships that could be dangerous. In other words, Russia currently has 3 ships and 3 submarines capable of launching cruise missiles in the Black Sea. Another naval expert thinks that the deactivation of the flagships of the Russian fleets affects the morale and psychological state of military sailors. However, according to this expert, the Black Sea Fleet still has enough dangerous vehicles in its composition. Later in the war, it's not known which expert or which naval officer's explanation will be correct. But there is a known fact that the Ukrainian Armed Forces taught the Russian Navy a lesson that it will never forget throughout its history. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications in order to be informed about new videos. Thank you for watching us.